Good morning, afternoon, or evening, everybody. This is Ron Yangich. I'm here with my fellow Bingham boy, John Saltis, and we have a guest today. We have a guest, Mark Moffat, who is a lawyer in town, and Mark is going to talk to us a little bit about the past legislative session in the state of Utah. That's going to be the focus of this particular Bingham Boys issue, and we want to get into some of the things that happened during the past legislative session. And from Mark. Mark is a lobbyist up there, and again, we'll get to it. But welcome to the Bingham Boys, Mark.
Thank you very much, Ron.
Mark and I have known one another for a long, long time. Like myself, he started his practice at the Legal Defenders and was a public defender for several years before he went into private practice. Relative to those of us from Bingham Canyon, Mark has similar background. When he was young, he was born in Pittsburgh. Most of his family worked in the steel mills or in the mining industry.
All the kids I went to school with were either in the mines or the mills. So.
Yeah, and so, I mean, he brings to that, and I didn't know that until recently, but it certainly is true as I've known him over many, many years, and I'll talk a bit about that. That's kind of the ethic he brought to the courtroom, and I really always admired him, and not knowing that, yep, you know, when you have coal, copper, silver, dust, or even molybdenum in your body from being around it, it seems to make you a different person. And it's also true, and I love Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh may be one of my favorite cities. I could live there. And having been all through it, walked all over it, they even have a tram, just like the old tram that still work. I mean, those are our people. Many different nationalities, peoples of all shades of color and background. And so, welcome again, Mark. I do want to say this about Mark. Mark is a great lawyer. He's a fantastic criminal defense attorney. He has practiced for a long time, graduated from the University of Utah undergraduate, and then went to San Diego University, which is a good Catholic school for those of us that are fish eaters, and in law school, and then came back to practice in the state of Utah. Came here when he was about 16 years old. Where'd you go to high school?
Went to Brighton High School.
All right, we won't hold that against him because that high school wasn't even built when you and I in high school.
It was when I was in there. By the way, I'm John.
Oh, that's what I said. I didn't. You generally interrupt.
He thinks I'm on a different gang.
No, I got to tell you the honest to God truth.
I'm out on the dumps and you're in the pit.
Yeah,
I get it.
I'm just so. I mean, it's so surprising that you didn't interrupt me. I expect that all the time.
I know. I was thinking to myself, I wonder what I will do here. And I thought through it.
It's cool. Good
hey,
morning,
and
Johnny.
Mark, hi. Happy to meet you, and hope you have one of those Primanti sandwiches in your back of your car or something.
Yeah. Primanti Brothers, yes.
Primanti, is that
right?
Yeah.
Well, so, and I apologize for not introducing you.
It's okay.
We're even. Anyway, great lawyer. Works now with another excellent lawyer and some other really good lawyers, a guy named Jim Bradshaw, who's an old friend. And those of you that know a little bit about Utah politics, his mother was a state senator for a long time. And although a Republican, was the one bridge in the legislature at the time she was there between the Democrats. Afton Bradshaw, between Democrats and Republicans and the governorship. They got stuff done at that time. Isn't that surprising?
Well, it's been how long? Because that might have been the end of it.
It's been a long time.
There's been nothing for the last. We'll talk about him maybe in this at some point. Cox, what's got done with that guy? I mean,
well, I don't know. He doesn't even know.
It's a different legislature now.
He doesn't even know that they're spending millions and millions of dollars to build a detention center in Utah. He was surprised by that.
Bullshit.
That's exactly the word I would use. So anyway, Mark, how long have you been a defense attorney?
I graduated from the University of Utah in 1987 and went to work for the Public Defender's Office a year after that. So I did some minor defense work when I got out immediately, and then was at the Public Defender's Office for 10 years. And so I've been doing it for 38 years.
So Mark was of a crew of lawyers at that time, some really, really good lawyers that were LDA at that time. They followed up. They were kind of a generation and a half after mine. And I just want to mention this. One of the things about Mark and guys like Mark and so many other. Were you there with Scott Williams?
Scott Williams was, I was there with Scott and Dave. Rich Morrow and I basically came in together. He came in a year after I.
There was a group of us, and also George Fergus's
Suzanne Guston
wife, Suzanne, and there are others. I'm sorry that they don't come to mind right now. It doesn't mean that they're not great lawyers, but that was a group of people that kind of picked up from where we had been and some other people in between, and the people that we had picked up for, and really cared about the practice of law. It was when the criminal bar section of the bar in Utah was very small and very tight, and people really cared about the vocation of the law. And that's one of the reasons I admire you so much, because you've exemplified that throughout your career, and have just been a great lawyer. Has handled a lot of high-profile cases, and also has done the bread and butter work that we all did as criminal defense lawyers, everything from petty larceny and shoplifting to murder cases. But a few years ago, I guess it was the Utah Criminal Lawyers Association that had you get involved in lobbying. Is that how you started?
Yes. Well, when I was at the Public Defender's Office, the first foray into doing anything up at the Capitol was when the legislature was going to change preliminary hearings. And so Jim Bradshaw, myself, Rich Morrow, and John Hill went up there and testified against what was the amendment to, I think it was Rule 12 of the Rules of Criminal Procedure that dealt with preliminary hearings. And after that, I would come up occasionally and try to get involved with this. But it was really, really hard when you're not in the room when this stuff is going on, when these ideas are being formulated. It's really hard to put out fires at the last minute. And then I would say 7 years ago, Steve Burton, who was a fellow defense lawyer here in town, was up there all the time, and he was able to get an appropriation from the legislature. So Legislator Senator Dan Hemmert, Joel Ferry, and Senator Cullimore were very helpful in getting us an appropriation to be present and provide a defense voice during the legislative session. There are a lot of bills that are run. I'd say roughly 25% of all the bills that are run every legislative session are bills that impact the criminal justice space, and that they needed to hear from defense lawyers, because all they were hearing from were prosecutors and law enforcement individuals.
And one of the things is that a lot of the bills that are proposed before the session starts, and that really they've agreed to pass them, particularly the Republican legislature, the majority, are bills that are proposed by the statewide association of prosecutors. And these things are meant to make it easier to convict people. That's the whole purpose behind them. They're not there to help people with greater rights, give people more rights, to more access to counsel, to more money for investigation as a general proposition. It's made to make it easier to convict people. And I did some lobbying for the National Association of Criminal Defense Lawyers in D.C. for several years, and also have done a little bit just calling people I know in the legislature early in my career and then later on certain things. But the idea that we do this as lawyers goes to an important Greek concept and Greek language concept, and also Latin, and that is that we do it for free. As lawyers, generally we do it for free. I'm glad that you're finally getting paid a little bit to do it, and that is the word is in Latin, or the phrase in Latin is pro bono publico, so for the public good, which in a day and age where we have a lot of people in public that are good for nothing, that's a good thing for us to do. So what about the Greek?
You might be the last people. Well, that and freelance writers work for free. Everybody else is kind of on the payroll somewhere, right? Attorneys do a lot of free pro bono work.
Yeah. We're supposed to.
Bill, we probably still owe him some pizza trade from 40 years ago, but there's not very many people who actually say of their time, yeah, I'm willing to give it.
Right.
Unless they've already done their work and they give some time on the weekend to feed or something. But to really do work for free, That's kind of rare.
Well, Mark is one of the people I knew that I could call when I would get calls. There were protests and people got arrested. He and a number of other lawyers that I could always call and say, hey, look, we've got some people that got arrested. Will you take one? And there was it was an unstated deal that you weren't going to get paid. You were doing it for the cause or for the reason. It's one of the great things that we can do. And is there a Greek word that seems to indicate that?
Well, it begins with, the whole. I tried to translate it from Latin. When you told me earlier you were thinking the word free, there's a different word for that. It's dorean, like a gift. Doro is a gift. It's a gift. Theodore, the word Theodore is God's gift. And when I realized later, and we got here and you're talking about pro bono, I go, uh-oh. So I had to just now Google it, Google Translate, and it didn't come up with exact translation. It did give one. It's called yapanda. That means forever, and I don't have no idea why it had that for the translation. But so I don't really know the exact what it means. But the whole concept of it. Because what was the word you said? Pro bono. What's the Latin?
Publico.
Publico. So the ancient Greeks and were that the Romans came to inherit and in fact admired and borrowed from. That whole concept of working for the public and public good. I don't know if it still exists. You'd hope so, but...
Well, I would think so. I mean, Socrates, that's who Socrates was in many ways. I mean, Socrates went around, and he did get paid on some things, but he challenged the Greek culture on some of their attitudes about stuff. I mean, that's why, as the story goes, that he drank the hemlock. He was convicted of corrupting the youth of Athens. Yeah. For those of you who want to read a great book about that, there's a book called The Trial of Socrates, a fantastic book. Not a big book, but a fantastic book. So, I mean, you did it. We all have done it for free, and lawyers do a lot of that. And in fact, in some states, you are obligated to have so many hours of pro bono work, which I think is stupid. If it's pro bono, you should do it out of the goodness of your heart. I had a client one time, by the way. I'm sure this happened to you. Came into my office. I had an appointment with him. I didn't know the guy. Made an appointment and told me about what his case was, and he said, "I want you to do it pro bono publico." And I said, this was a long time ago.
I said, what do you want, Mike Lee?
No, I could have, but I did say this. I said, that's when we were in where the courthouse is now, the Mathens Court is. I said, you've got to go about 2 blocks north,
hang a left.
Take a left, and then you got to go about 5 more blocks. They can satisfy you on that. I can't. And then
those were the days.
Yes, and that was the days of before Congressman Howe.
It was a lively area, by the way.
Congressman Howe got
he was
there.
doing research, I think.
He said that. Yeah, but for those of you who don't know what we're talking about, we had a congressman. Second South was a place where Salt Lake City police isolated so-called nonviolent crime, prostitution, drugs at that time, and just some other
minors
stuff. Minors drinking. Joe Redburn's
gambling,
gay bar and gambling and stuff like that. That's where they isolated. They kept it there, and I think we've mentioned that on the show before, but that's what I was talking about, and that's where the congressman got arrested.
Howe was his name. And
Alan Howe.
He went over after the Democratic primaries that evening and
looking for love in all the wrong places.
I don't know what the hell he was thinking because, after him, there was not another Democrat elected for a long
No,
time.
it hurt.
But, he got picked up for solicitation of love, right? Wasn't he looking for love in all the wrong places?
Yeah, that's what I just said. I mean, it could have been a movie. So we get back to you. So you start this and you're doing this, and we'll let you talk. What exactly do you do? What do you do on behalf, in a sense, to make justice, talking about justice in the criminal justice system, have more of an even flavor to it? I guess that's in a sense what you were intended to do.
Yeah, we try our hardest to do that, Ron. I think I mentioned that every session, about 25% of the bills impact criminal justice, and those bills are run by Democrats and Republicans. And a lot of the bills seek to create new criminal offenses, create new felony offenses, increase penalties. And a lot of them are bills that may tinker with state of mind issues, to your point about maybe having an impact to make convictions easier. And what we try to do is we try to make those bad bills less bad. We try to kill certain bills if we're able. There's a lot of legislative momentum behind them. We've got to work with the sponsors to see if we can remove some of the provisions within the bills that are most problematic for us. We also run our own bills. And some of this, the bills that we seek to run sometimes are difficult because of the issues that we are advancing. But we make an effort to run bills that we think will improve the quality of criminal justice in the state of Utah. We ran a bill. I mentioned before that I was initially involved up at the legislature in dealing with, I said the wrong thing, Article 1, Section 12 of the Utah Constitution, right, that basically had a radical impact on the way that preliminary hearings were conducted in the state of Utah. And I ran a bill, and Senator Weiler sponsored it, to allow for witnesses to be called in preliminary hearings. So now they can't just do a preliminary hearing where they give the judge a piece of paper or an 1102 statement from a witness. They have to call at least the investigating officer. And some jurisdictions are now calling victims and calling other live witnesses. And so that bill has had an impact. So that's an example of a bill that we have run that we believe has significantly improved the practice of criminal law in the state of Utah.
Historically in Utah, when I started practicing law for a century before, in the territorial courts in Utah, we had an open preliminary hearing. The state had to prove that there was probable cause to believe that a crime had committed and the person had committed it, but they had to do it with live witnesses. Hearsay was not allowed, except under exceptions to the hearsay rule, and there was a purpose for that, and they discussed this. It was to make sure that bad cases didn't get past that initial stage, and also initially it was used to set bail long ago, but it worked great for a long time. It made the job of the prosecutor harder, but good prosecutors understood that if they put a skeleton case on in front of a magistrate judge to determine that, if the magistrate judge didn't see it, they were just weeding bad cases out, because bad cases happen all the time. Things change from the time they file the charge. And so that's how it was always done. Nobody complained about that until really the guy that came in and complained was a Federalist Society professor at the University of Utah, Paul Cassell, who also wanted to overturn the Miranda rule, and he believed that the death penalty always worked, and one of the arguments he made was that nobody ever had been killed that was innocent in the death penalty, that was shot down fairly quickly. And he's entitled to his beliefs, but that's where we started seeing that preliminary hearing, which was really, and it was a discovery process for the defense attorney too.
Yeah, an ancillary purpose.
An ancillary but an important purpose. So they started cutting that back years ago, and because of you and the legislators, we've kind of got a little bit more back. And again, I'll say this, and I can speak of one prosecutor particularly, Troy Rawlings up in Davis County, who's a great prosecutor and a great guy. And Troy has come back to the position that they have to do more preliminary hearings up there so that they can see how good their cases are. Because good defense attorneys know that things change over time, and so do good prosecutors. But anyway, so that's one instance.
Yeah.
What else?
We worked very hard on bail reform. Senator Pitcher, who was then in the House of Representatives, ran a bail reform bill, and it got significantly watered down, but we worked hard on that piece of legislation to try to keep as many of the good provisions in it as we could. Every year since that bill passed, there have been efforts to kind of whittle away the advances that the original bill had within it. We saw an increase after that bill passed in prosecutors using no bail holds, and the threshold for release with a no bail hold was in place were onerous. We've been able to modify that, and so we've worked hard to try to make it more just in having people released from custody, even when they're charged with very serious crimes.
So one of the things is that, and this is kind of criminal law and procedure 101 that some people apparently that are lawyers had never had. That are in particularly legislators or governors or assistants to them, the idea that if you're charged with a crime doesn't mean you're guilty, and it isn't just a throwaway line. I mean, cops make mistakes all the time. And in a day and age where so much is done so quickly, and there is so much work to be done because they keep adding crimes to state codes and federal codes. They're overworked and many ways underpaid, and so I give them that benefit of a doubt. But we also have a lot of prosecutors' offices in this state and in the country that are manned by really inexperienced lawyers. And things get charged that shouldn't be charged. They're either overcharged or they're not. And people sit in the can doing that. And they do that even though they may well be innocent totally or innocent of the charge they're dealing with. So this idea that we see on both the right and the left, depending on the crime, well, if they're arrested, they should stay in jail until the trial. You can wait in jail in Utah now for 9 months before you go to trial, even if you're in jail, and it can be even longer than that. And so your efforts,
longer.
Yeah, and your efforts on that have really borne fruit. And Stephanie Pitcher is a great lady. In fact, I think this weekend she's having a birthday party and fundraiser.
Tomorrow night.
Tomorrow night. Great Democratic legislator. Shout out to her. And she's an attorney, too.
She is.
And a good lawyer, too. Really good lawyer. So what else? So when you go,
Can I ask you something like this? Just curiously. But
sure.
You said early in a moment ago, you said, the presumption of innocence. Isn't it?
Yeah, the presumption of innocence.
That used to be. That's a fantasy today.
Well,
I mean, you said if you were arrested or convicted, then you're presumed innocent.
Yeah.
And in today's society, the accusation itself means you're guilty.
Well, I think
that's not a good thing, because guys like sitting on my right here, Mark, are going beating their heads up, and it doesn't even matter because it doesn't need to get to court anymore because people judge already external of a court system who's guilty or not.
Well, I think that's happened, and it's happened with Donald Trump, and it's happened with other legislators.
So how do you deal with it? I mean, it's like pushing a rock up a hill.
It's also it happens with the media.
No, it's
not you.
No, it is. To that point, I think that the advent of social media charges equate to conviction in the eyes of the public, and that's a big issue we can talk about here in a minute. Having said that, and having practiced in the courts for as long as I have, I can tell you that the judges that I appear in front of take the threshold requirement of proof beyond a reasonable doubt seriously. They take the presumption of innocence seriously, and I think most juries do as well. Where it becomes really tricky is when you have the high-profile cases that have all this pretrial publicity going in.
Yeah.
You have to try to.
It does explain why it's so important for certain people to appoint judges.
Well, no, and that is a problem. I mean, it is a problem. I agree with everything Mark just said with one caveat. There are judges now, because judges get graded. We get things in the mail at the end of the year where we grade judges. I don't do it. I have a form letter I send to the Supreme Court judge saying, I don't do this, I've never done it. Half of the people that leave a courtroom are going to be mad at the judge. Why should I be grading a judge? And, if to quote Edward Edwards, I couldn't get impeached unless I was caught in bed with a live boy or a dead woman. And, I mean, that's the legislature to impeach judges that aren't doing their job. It isn't for me to call them on it. But, and this is not pushback, this is where I disagree a little bit. I think there are a lot of judges that are afraid of those grades that they get, and then to take...
What's the downside of a bad grade?
And then, but the downside is that then the legislature then uses that to say, see, we appointed this bad judge, we've got to appoint different people, we've got to do better, we've got to make it easier to get rid of judges. Judges have a hard job, And
how come everybody that opposes Trump and the current administration is an activist judge, even when they were appointed by Reagan or Bush?
Well, because that's one of the phoniest terms. You can jump in, Mark. Phoniest terms that's ever been used. Activist judges exist and have existed from time immemorial. Okay, Justice Story was an activist judge when he ruled in the Dred Scott case that black people really still were not citizens in certain instances. That's activism. The Republicans have been able to purchase these terms, meaning equating synonym, activist judge, a decision that we don't agree with, okay? Republicans use the term, they're constitutional originalists, right? That means that we interpret the Constitution the way it was meant to be, which is also BS. But so they're meaningless synonyms that are used by politicians. Most judges really care. And I've said this before, I think, on the Bingham Boys, most juries care. Juries bleed with cases. Even cases that you sometimes go, this is a real uphill battle. I think my client's innocent, or I don't think they're guilty of this crime, or whatever. They'll go in and they'll bleed. I've had juries stay out over a day on a misdemeanor case, literally, because they're in there and they want to do the right thing. And is that your experience?
Yeah, no, I think jurors take the obligation very seriously. To your point, John, one of the interesting things that happened this last legislative session is that there was a judge in Grand County, Judge Torgerson.
Great guy. I wrote a column in the Private Eye about that.
And he there was a young man before him, I think in his early 20s, who had been caught with child pornography, child sex abuse material in the current vernacular. And he had apparently shared it with some other people. And in that case, the prosecutor had the ability to get a presumptive prison sentence, but negotiated it down to an offense that would allow the judge, if he saw fit, to grant probation, and the judge did. And then the prosecutor, because he was upset that the kid didn't go to prison, went to the media,
and also was taking some heat from the parents of. Taking heat from the people who believe that everybody gets charged with that crime should go to prison.
That's right. And so the thing blew up in the media. And then the speaker got involved in it. And, throughout the session, I can just tell you, throughout the session, we heard all about that offense and that judge's ruling. And that judge's ruling influenced various pieces of legislation throughout, even though that judge, for the people who were in the courtroom on that day, believed that the judge made the right call. The lawyers that represented the young man believed that the judge made the right call. And so it's an example of how judges doing what they're supposed to do can oftentimes be misinterpreted.
And it's also it's also about good for nothing politicians who gave him the power to do that by their own legislation, and the prosecutor agreed with it, because most of us around that have done those kind of cases realize on a first offender the likelihood of going to prison is not very high unless you're in federal court and you can be charged with the same thing, and that we have to limit the damage that would be done to a kid like that in prison, and all number of other things, and also all of the conditions of his probation that he had, which would be treatment, constant treatment, monitoring, and
he's on the registry.
He's on the sex offender registry. All that. The prosecutor
for life.
Gutlessly went to the media when he took a little bit of heat. And then Cowboy Bob up at the legislature decided he would call that Torgerson be impeached. And of course, they didn't want to do that because there are some intelligent people up there. And it was really unfair to him. And he's a good judge. He's a really good judge. He was a public defender down in Grand County for a long time. I've known him. I've seen him in court. And I just think he took a lot of unfair heat. And that was using the politics and the power of the legislature to focus on one judge so Trevor could act like he was a tough guy and he was really opposed to crime. It's bullshit.
It was amazing to me how that situation influenced legislation. The Speaker ran a bill to remove all defense voices from the Sentencing Commission. I was on the Sentencing Commission from 2011 to 2014, or 2010 to 2014. I think it was House Bill 274 was a bill that he ran to remove all defense voices from the Sentencing Commission because of that case, because that case was a guideline-based sentence. Right. And thankfully, the Speaker was able to talk to Steve Burton, who I do this policy work with, and Steve was able to get him to say, wait, and he put the defense voices back on. So to his credit, he was as staunch as he was going in. He was able to listen to us, and he put defense voices back on the Sentencing Commission.
But he didn't come out and say he was wrong, and he didn't come out and say that I did this because what they told me was right. Because we need different voices to tell, to help set policy in the state of Utah. It can't be one group. It can't be one party. It can't be only the people that go into the courtroom on one side of the courtroom. That's how due process and justice work. And that's why you're so important. And again, I didn't get into this, but everybody in the criminal defense bar knows, and judges know, that you're out front, again, with Senator Pitcher and some other people, and making certain that at least our side gets heard. Because you can't put everybody in prison, but you do want, if you're going to have guidelines, that they're guidelines that take all of the things into account. Good prosecutors listen to defense attorneys. When you go in and say, hey, pal, you got this problem, you got that problem, or why is it that you need this kind of sentence? Because this is what he's done, this is what he's done, and these are the things he's done to change his life. That's how we do things, and that's how we're supposed to. When you sit up on Mount Olympus, Capitol Hill in Utah, and just say, throw them all away and lock the keys. Bump their head into the door of the police vehicle when you arrest them. And if they even look at you badly, shoot them. That's the kind of stuff that America is not about, my opinion.
No, and I will say this. The Speaker gave two very different presentations. His first presentation was before the House Judiciary Committee. And there were some things that were said there that I strongly disagreed with. His presentation to the Senate Judiciary Committee, he actually apologized. Then
I take it back.
And so it was. I don't know. That was great. It was good to hear that.
When did you get out of the hospital?
When did I?
Well, you had to have a heart attack when you saw that guy apologize, didn't you?
Well, it was unexpected, but I think it was heartfelt. I was surprised.
Okay.
I think anybody in that room was surprised.
You know what? Then I do take it back. Then if he apologized, I never heard it, but good for him.
Well, here's that leads to what I was going to ask a little bit, if it's okay, because as I sit here, I'm not the most unaware person of what happens on the legislature. I'm far less than I used to be because I was more involved always day to day at the paper, and so now more closely aligned with the dirty masses. We don't hear this stuff. And so all the work that you've just talked about and anything you do is brand new news to us because we don't hear it. We hear about, that supposed male that, went through a surgery so he could win a gold medal at, transgender stuff, or the gay this or that, or, the high profile, just keep you preoccupied with all the nonsense news. We had a lot of it was good, though, because there was a lot of it was on redistricting. But most people don't know more than 2 or 3 things that came out of the entire session. And somewhere I read this was one of the years where the governor signed the most bills in a long time. I may be wrong, but there was a lot, and I can't name 2 of them. Yeah. And you guys are talking about stuff that went on. You were up there for 45 days. Ron pays attention. I'm not blind, but this is a bad deal when the public doesn't know what you're doing. Well, what these guys are cooking in that stew. We have no idea who are the good guys and bad guys. So it just becomes like the Republicans hate the Democrats. That's all you hear. And Democrats should fear the Republicans on either side. And it's like that's it.
You've got a really good point, and it is frustrating because all of these committees that we appear in front of, they're open to the public. And there are certain members of the public that are there routinely, and you can participate online.
We have people write us letters every
Yeah, no, but
there's certain very convicted, can have strong convictions about participating,
Yes.
and then the rest kind of don't.
but a lot of people don't, and it's the same with the courts. There are a lot of legislators who are not up to speed on what goes on in the courts day in and day out, especially in criminal justice matters and in prosecutions. And there are these misperceptions about what happens in court. There's a narrative. We hear it all the time, and it's at both the national, but it's at the state level as well. And it's that basically crime is out of control and people are not being held accountable, which means that you hear these wild stories that people charged with murder are out the next day. They're not being held accountable. These things are not true. But unfortunately, the constituents in the community, they hear this stuff in the media and they believe it. And then they put pressure on the legislators to do something about it. And that is a contributing factor to why we see these bills to increase penalties, to create new felonies. There's an anecdote that a lot of this stuff is constituent-driven bills. We said, well, we heard this, or we had a neighbor that had this, and they come up with now a different crime, or they change the elements, and it's really, really frustrating.
Go ahead.
No, one of the things that we forget is all of this goes back to Nixon and the Democrats. The Democrats, we've talked a lot about some of the stuff that the Democrats have been done legislatively and executively in our country that you and I disagree with, and that other people do as well. But the mantra of the Republicans and the conservative right Democrats has always been, we need a war on crime. We need a war on drugs. We need this. And they have pursued legislation that makes it a war, which basically means we'll take away some rights that people have because these people are at war with us. Well, they're not. They're our own citizens. And it goes back to that. And those same constituents that go to a legislator because they heard that this happened. And it's just normal Jane and Joe as well, because they hear it and they're pissed off. My wife all the time will call, how could this happen? Well, what are you talking about? Then you look at it and you go, well, yeah, but just as with the case of Torgerson, the prosecutor agreed to that and they had reasons to do it. Or also, it's within the sentencing guidelines that are prescribed for this particular crime. But legislators hear that and they don't want to be soft on crime. Why do you not want to be soft on crime? How about being soft in crime on this way? How about having treatment facilities for people with serious drug and alcohol problems that are paid for by the state? You've been practicing since '87. I practiced since 1975. I do not believe that we have had one inpatient drug treatment facility that has been built and maintained by the state of Utah since I practiced law. And we've had drug problems and alcohol problems since that time. You want to be, if it's soft on crime to get people treatment, then you know what? We're soft on crime, or we're not soft on crime, because we don't do that, and everybody says that's what we should do. It's false mantras that continue from back in the '60s.
Well, so interesting story. So when I was on the Sentencing Commission up until 2014. And then after that, I was on the Commission for Criminal and Juvenile Justice, and I'm still on that committee. And during my first year that I was on the Commission for Criminal and Juvenile Justice, Governor Herbert invited the Pew Charitable Trust to come to the state of Utah to look into our criminal justice system and to see if there could be improvements, to see if taxpayer dollars could be spent more wisely. And so Pew did this intense study. It was called the Justice Reinvestment Initiative, and I was part of it. And what they did is they lowered penalties for certain offenses because, of course, at that point in time, we had the prison out at the point of the mountain.
Right.
It was at capacity. We were filling it up with a bunch of people that were low risk, and they were saying, you know what, if we lower penalties here, but then provide treatment, to your point, Ron, on the back end, then we're going to have better returns because we're not going to have people sitting in prison for long periods of time. We're not going to have the contagion of prison apply to them and have them come out worse than they went in. And we're going to get these people help. The help on the back end was supposed to be funded by Medicaid expansion, and this was at a time when, the whole idea of Medicaid and Medicaid expansion and Obamacare and everything were kind of, people were up at the Capitol.
Oh, communists are doing that, boy.
They were not embracing it, and we thought we had a Medicaid waiver that we were going to get, but then the state backed off of it, and when it backed off of it, it took the money away from the treatment that was supposed to happen. And predictably, if people are not getting treatment, they're going to go back out on the streets and they're probably going to be committing crimes. And so JRI up at the Capitol right now is a 4-letter word. It's a failed policy, but the only reason it failed is because we didn't fund it.
No, as a lawyer, I mean, if you really want to get me fired up about what I did, I always believed, and there are a number of reasons for it. I saw friends and relatives die of alcohol and drug addiction. You come into my office, we got a drug problem, innocent or guilty, you're charged with a drug offense or a driving under the influence offense, we're getting you treatment. You got to do that. That's part of the deal.
Yep.
We're going to get you into treatment. Doesn't have to be inpatient. We're going to find out if you've got a real problem. There are people that I wish had done that for relatives and lawyers and others that I know. But what really gets me is how much it costs for anybody to go to a drug or treatment program, how long the lines are, even if you have the money. And there are people out there doing great work trying to help people, talking about pro bono work or working for peanuts to do it because they want to help others. We could do it tomorrow. Take the money that they're given to ICE or a part of it and start with that. Use Medicare. They could have done it. The reason they don't want to do it is just what I said earlier, Mark. It's because that's not being tough.
We do have that, whether it being funding ICE to the expense of other programs or funding a war that isn't our war in the Middle East right now. Any day we're spending $1 billion. I'm pretty sure that would feed a lot of people and get a lot of rehab taken care of here, just in Utah, probably nationwide, on a day's work in the Middle East, of being tough and having fun and dancing, and this is the war ethic. Well, anyway, that's a different deal. But like a second ago, you said the media said this, and I don't condemn at all that you said that. We all say that, but the truth is guys like Ben Winslow do a lot of great reporting.
Right.
Our own Ben Woods did a lot of great reporting about his specialty. He cares about traffic and pedestrian ways and bicycle paths and all stuff. And the news is out there from the media. What the public has done is bypass the media and start to believe like rando newsletters and emails and social posts and all this stuff. That has moved into the new realm of what news is, as opposed to the media in an easy way. Yeah, we say that, and we're all guilty, but there's a real knowledge on my part that people don't pay attention to media because it's easier to pay attention to something else, and that something else is being exploited by people who are really good at it. People who like to keep their name in the press, people who like, distract you for a different cause and so on, because they know we're easily distracted, particularly in social media. And we, like I said, we talk about what's Trevor Lee doing now? My God, he's naming city streets again, for people that don't deserve it. He went 0 for 12, by the way,
We played baseball with Donald Trump, who is the greatest baseball player.
Well, they're same batting average.
He went 1 for 9 in 2 years.
Got a trophy, but it's a real problem because you're doing the work in the legislature. If you can tell me who 3 great legislators are, I'd be surprised because I can no longer name anybody in the legislature unless I see their name in the headline.
There are.
I know there are. I know there are, and I'm a public citizen. I don't know who they are. I got neighbors of mine that are in the legislature.
I think that part of the problem is that, and again, that It's like judge shopping that we good criminal defense attorneys have been known to do. You want it, you're shopping for forums. I don't know that a lot of these people that are good people know where they can go to really be on a forum where they can speak and they can talk honestly, and even to people that may disagree with them, because so much of what we have out there are just bang shots that people are throwing at people, and that seems to bring attention. So I think that's a problem. By the way, for our listeners, we've already talked about this. We're going to have one of the upcoming podcasts will be with journalists that are going to be here to talk about this and some other things. But going back to what you said, I just want to reiterate. We talk about pro bono publico. I mean, did you listen to what Mark had to say? I mean, all the committees he has been on. And when I was a younger lawyer, I was on a lot of committees. But this guy has been on some of the most important committees relative to criminal justice, and he's done it all along. And I want to thank you.
I appreciate you saying that. Before we started to get an appropriation from the legislature, it was all our own time, and other people that Rich Morrow has been on those committees. It's hard work, and it's contentious a lot of times.
Yes,
it was contentious.
Does it help that there's 80-20 in the House, one party, and Senate? I mean,
I don't know what the percentages are, but it's a super majority.
Yeah, so I mean, the other side doesn't have to try if they don't want to.
If
there's 4 or 5 individuals in there that hold any kind of strength or power, committee, whatever, the other side never gets hurt at all. So you can just bat your head against the wall all day long. You're not going to be effective.
You know why he is doing it is because as a defense attorney, you play no home games. You're always playing away games, and the referees are in their pocket. So again, this is a compliment. So for him to go in this constantly and do that, that's in the truest tradition of the bar, and what it means to do pro bono publico work or get paid for it, and that is that you're not carrying the briefcase for Trevor Lee
or the Republican Party,
or if the Democratic Party's in charge. You're doing what you believe is right because your vocation tells you to do it. It isn't so that you're going to get clicks on TikTok. It's because you're doing the right thing. And again, Mark and others that have done that, and a lot of people do this type of stuff as lawyers and in other circumstances, unions and other things. They're not looking down the road about how they're going to benefit from it. It's not a bargain for exchange. It's because they know if we could get certain things done, we can actually save people.
Can you predict or estimate how many bipartisan pieces went through, just curiously?
I'm not sure I have a number on that. I mean, I think that
from just glancing at them. Do they cooperate? It doesn't seem like me on the street that.
No, well, Republicans wouldn't want to pass anything that is bipartisan. Okay,
that's right. Well, is there any time that 2 guys get together and say, "Hey"?
But there are. I mean, you see a number of pieces of legislation where, let's say, a Democratic House member will have a Republican sponsor from the Senate. Those types of things, those kind of working relationships are not at all uncommon up there. And this is another thing. I mean, in some ways, the Republican label, the Democrat label, I mean, you'd be surprised at the number of, say, Republican legislators that are running really good bills. The kind of bills that they're there for the public good. Nelson Abbott is a Republican, and he has run some fantastic pieces of legislation to try to help those people who are mentally ill. Carol Moss ran an insanity defense bill again. Yeah. No, she's a Democrat, but there are people up there that they care about their constituents. It's not it's always surprising to me that where some of this stuff comes from.
I think it exists.
Matt Gwynn, who was a cop up in northern Utah, he ran some good pieces of legislation.
I think a lot of people are afraid that if they do something that seems to not be in accordance, and this is with both parties, that they're gonna catch flack from the people that have power in parties. It seems to me Dave Spatafor's name came up when you first got here. He's a lawyer and a lobbyist, and Frank Piganelli, another lawyer and lobbyist. They've been there forever. Whenever I see them when I'm walking the dog, I go there. Oh, I'll say it out loud. There's the oldest lobbyist in the history of Utah. He lobbied Brigham Young on behalf of the Episcopalian Church. But anyway, just to embarrass them. But those guys, and this is getting to a question for you. This year when I bumped into both those guys walking Jack up to they truly looked like they had the old public defender slouch when you've been in court day after day with a heavy briefcase full of files and have been in there fighting, and you could see it. You know what I'm talking about.
Frank's had that since he was 17 when I met him. He was carrying ice to my bins because I was a bartender and he was my bar back.
Okay.
So
well, that's your fault.
He's been slouching.
So it's
Frank's
your fault.
a good guy.
He's a good guy.
Yeah.
We're going to have him on sometime.
I hope so. Be good to see him.
You two have argued quite a bit, and so it'll be fun. But the idea, what I'm getting at is, I think that it's there. These are human beings. They understand problems. They don't want to all of them don't just want to spout. And again, it can be both sides. The talking points. They want to get stuff done. It's the cancerous culture of attack from certain members of the party and the party structure, and the fact that they have to get a lot of money to get reelected. Do you agree with that? Or
I don't know. I'm not sure I agree with all of it, but it's
starting with Democrats don't have any money.
Well, I think it's hard for Democrats to get things done, but people do need to get reelected, and there is a concern, I think, with backing certain pieces of legislation that there's going to be a big constituent backlash. Now, I'm not going to mention the senator's name, but there's a senator up there that we have worked with who has tried to advance pieces of legislation that would improve an individual's ability to get off the sex offender registry.
Yeah.
And when he has done these, and it's all grounded stuff. I mean, it's based on data, based on studies, based on do we keep people that are low risk on sex offender registries for life? When he's attempted to do these things, the backlash he showed me, the stuff that it's you're a pedophile lover. It's this horrible stuff that chills an individual's desire to run something that may ultimately be a good and fair bill, but if the perceptions are running the show up there, is bad, they're going to back away from it.
And that's understandable. I mean, I do understand that. It's not going to give you a profile in courage to back away from it, but I understand where it happens. People know so little about the criminal justice system and how everything works. We'd love to have you back sometime, talk about other stuff if you would, and we're about done, Johnny.
Okay.
So we did want to bring one Bingham thing into it, and that is that we've talked about him before, Tom Levatt, who was a great baseball and football player at the University of Utah long ago. He's even older than me. And then was the coach at Utah, did not have a great career as a coach at Utah, and then went into the NFL and was a coach and one of the really beloved line coaches. He was the offensive line coach.
Green Bay,
and also Kansas City. And he has written an autobiography, which is out. I got my copy last night. It was late. It was like 6 o'clock, and I go to bed at 7 now. So I just glanced at it, but it looks really good.
Well, in our home, Jim Levatt, his younger brother, was my older brother's age in Bingham. And so I've known the Levatts. And Nellie Church, I think, was tied to the Levatt family. Yeah. And so our dear neighbor. But Tom, of course, we knew then more as like an heroic, that guy that was here, because he'd already moved out of the canyon and everything and followed his career. My other brother was about Tom's age, maybe a little younger. And what a great, iconic Bingham athlete. Remember, there's a zillion of them, but Tommy Levatt, that's what we always call Tommy Levatt. Tommy Levatt and Jimmy Levatt. He showed me his Super Bowl ring up at the park one day on the 4th of July. We went this year. He wasn't there, but he'd be great to have on.
I think he's going to be in town. I've told that. I'm related. My mother's maiden name. My mother's maiden name is Lovat. That Lovat family comes from the same area in Italy as they do. My mom, before she passed away, and I think people know this, she was all over the Bingham sites, and she corresponded on Facebook with Tom a lot, and so I've got his number in her book. I'm going to call him tonight and see if he'll come on.
Yeah.
And what makes me feel good is, he had a rough go as a head coach of Utah.
He's had a bad deck.
Yeah, he was.
He was young. He was only what?
He was
33 years old.
But you read about his career, and I know this because I know tangentially a guy named Howard Mudd, just a little bit, who was one of the most famous offensive line coaches in pro football, college football history. And I asked him about Tom one time, and he goes, nobody better. I mean, he's just great. And so I'm glad he's getting his kudos. And as for Jimmy coached me one summer at County Rec, and I love him and the whole family.
Well, let's get him on. So before we head out, thank you, Mark.
Thank you for having me.
Nice to meet you again outside the coffee garden.
Yeah.
It turns out his office and our old office are really close, and I recognized him immediately, but I couldn't place it. But I got to just say one thing, or it's a dare. I'll have to pay for my cousins getting pissed at me, and that's Zito Ielas.
Today is Greek
Independence Day, and that means long live Greece, basically.
Well, I agree with that.
And,
what is it? What is it again?
Long live Greece. Zito Ielas.
Oh, Zito?
Elada. Yeah, Zito is long live life.
Okay.
So Greece, Elinas. They don't say the Greek Hellenes, but. So it's Greek Independence Day. It's also a feast day in Greece. So today, Fishman, you mentioned that earlier.
Yeah.
The Greeks that are on a hard fast, my company excluded, today they can actually eat fish.
I think you should.
And so the traditional meal today, celebrating Gabriel's and Mary's, it's their name day. They are going to, all over Greece, cook cod, bacalao.
Yeah.
Deep fried cod with the garlic sauce.
I love that. This troubles you when I say this stuff about our religions. Father Macarius, his brother is a monk, or his cousin is a monk.
In Egypt.
In Egypt, at St. Catherine's Monastery.
Wow.
But Father Macarius would laugh. So today in the Catholic Church, it's the Feast of the Annunciation, where Gabriel,
it's the same
deal. And we do all those things that are so similar. I won't eat meat today if you don't. I will. I'll have tilapia.
I haven't had any yet, so
I'll have tilapia tonight and
cod, breaded cod.
I know. I have tilapia at home.
And it's better with a salt cod.
Yeah, and our Basque friends love that.
So the Greeks. It's sort of interesting. I got it. They don't celebrate the end of war. They say no. Like, we're not going to let anybody take us over.
Yeah,
they've done that a couple times. But here's one that I hope they say no to now. Also in today's news is. Israel is proposing to purchase like 40 uninhabited or lightly inhabited Greek islands as a place of refuge of some type. And I don't know exactly why, but I certainly hope they say no. As places to run to. Be safe. I don't know.
I would have I would not let Netanyahu purchase anything because you don't know what he would send there. I mean, you don't.
Yeah, I get it. So anyway.
Well, that's troubling.
Can I do one? You always accuse me of this, but I must do this. The last word. I'm looking across, a guy in a handsome suit, like I could see him and a lawyer, standing before the bench. And then there's you, who looks like you might be on trial, and he's protecting you.
I've got to tell him what my shirt.
That's what I was going to do. So Ron walks in without a sans suit and tie. I don't even know if you have shoes on, but his shirt, white, right? It says, I have a dream on it.
White T-shirt.
So it has I have a dream, which might lead one to think it's a cause for Martin Luther King Sr., but it's not. There's an image of a policeman with his back, and it says police across his back, taking a gentleman. And I don't know who it is because I can't tell who it is, other than it has a fat ass, some really yellowish blonde hair, and a red tie, but I can't see his face.
No,
I believe it's an image of Trump handcuffed walking away, but it might not be. It could be on the other side of that face that's turned away from me. That could be
RFK.
No. It could be a it could be a, what do you call it? That really wild, like Wolverine kind of face. I don't know. There's no face there, but it's got to be an image of Trump, right?
It's intended to be Donald Trump.
It is intended. That's who it is.
And that is who it is. And this is, we dream dreams of justice in very many different ways. I mean,
you're wearing it on your shirt.
I mean,
you turn it over, you'll be wearing it on your back.
Here's the deal, and I think Mark will agree with me. Yeah, we'll fight hard for people to make sure their rights are protected and also innocent or not convicted. But we believe in equal justice, and that is, I have people in prison still. I assume you do. And in fact, I think there was a year or two that they decided they better build another wing because I was putting so many people in prison, it seemed like. But I'll tell you what, my guys go to prison for a lot less than he did. My men and women have gone to prison.
Martha Stewart's part Greek. Did she not go to prison for a long time? I'm kind of sympathetic.
Don't start me with Martha.
I'm just saying. Okay. She went for the same crime.
But here's the deal. So the T-shirt is meant to simply represent, I don't want anybody to go to prison. I don't want anybody to commit crime. But I'll tell you what, if you are somebody like him and you've done what you've done and you lied how you have and you put other people down and you ask people to go to prison and ask innocent people, it's okay to shoot them because they're protesting, then pal, it's your turn.
It's okay to say, hey, Robert Mueller's dead. Good. I'm glad he's gone.
Yeah, I'll say one different thing, and that is when you arrest him, if you have to do the perp walk, that's okay. Don't bang his head into the car door.
Right. I don't believe in that. I don't believe in ill will on him unless he goes to court.
I don't think it's ill will for him to see
justice.
Yeah. All right. With that, we'll say amen. Mark, thank you, man.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you both. Really appreciate the time.
Vinny.